Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War, Warhammer 2, quick match gameplay. This time around we are playing as the perfidious Skaven against the High Elves on the steppes of Karak Buftar. So, for my composition here, I decided to very much focus on the artillery department. Obviously, something of a risk against High Elves. If they bring bolt throwers, they can snipe down your artillery very quickly. And in having to invest so much in defending it, bring Stormmen with halberds, and of course two warp lightning cannons, that is a third of your army right there. So there are definitely many ways to shut it down. So you definitely need to try to build around protecting it and getting the most out of your artillery. So for my lord here, I did decide to bring a Grazier of Plague, and you might be wondering why instead of say Skrolk, but actually the main reason was that I wanted to get the most Winds of Magic I could. Skrolk is not that good at just getting cast spells off, and I knew that I didn't have enough armor piercing weaponry here to deal with. If my opponent decided to say bring Phoenix Guard or bring Swordmasters, and he did actually bring those units. If he brought those, I knew that I didn't have the tools that I needed to crack that armor in a vaguely efficient manner. So I decided to try to get Wither and get as much use out of it as possible. He also does have Blessed with Filth, that poison, Vermintide for the clan rats to shut down enemy backlines, Arcane Conduit of course, as well as the built-in Scourge. So definitely I think a decent selection. He does have Plague Rash, which of course is a Vigor debuff. And for any of you who don't know, Vigor is actually pretty important in this game. If your units are especially if your units are exhausted, if they're at the bottom tiers of Vigor, they actually take more damage, or because they lose melee defense, but they also lose armor. You lose, I do believe it's 25% armor when you're completely exhausted. Portents of Vermin's Doom, of course, also adding some leadership debuffs, which can be okay against High Elves. On the flank here, Warlock Engineer with the Howling Warp Kill, as well as the Warp Stone Armor to provide some additional anti-armor support. A front line of 4 Plague Monks. These guys should tear through Spearmen pretty quick. With the support, they should be able to trade okay with White Lions. And if my opponent brings some high-end troops, these guys do have immunity psychology as long as Frenzy is up. And with that, I'm hoping that with the buffs from the Grazier, they can do okay. In the front line, I'm trying something I'm not a fan of doing, and I don't do very often, is Gutter Runners. I know a lot of people swear by these guys. I really don't like the low ammo on them in the short range, but I did want to give them a shot. I figured I'll give them a chance. So here you have them, vanilla Gutter Runners. They do have 360 fire, and I do believe they used to ignore shields, but they no longer do that. So I'm generally a fan of the Slingers, actually. And I know some people don't like them, but I think the Slings are better. On the flanks, I do have Clan Rat Spears. I do have 2 Stormvermin, of course, with halberds, as well as 2 Warp Lightning Cannons. The Warp Lightning Cannon's already teeing off on the Flamespire Phoenix, and doing an okay amount of hurt. I do believe it's about a couple hundred, if not 1,000 HP off it. I'm not entirely sure where the Flamespire Phoenix starts. A little difficult to get a beat on him. If we get it, yeah, about 600 HP off him. For the rest of my opponent's comp, a bit interesting. He did bring Teclis. Nothing too fancy there. Teclis is definitely solid and probably one of the more popular lord choices. He does have Sword of Teclis, so definitely a little interesting there. Perhaps we'll see some melee Teclis, you never know. Bound Fiery Convocation, which of course can roast the squishy Skaven really effectively. Potion of Troy for the debuffs. Sorry, not debuffs, for the heals. I'm getting ahead of myself there. Regrowth for the heals. Flock of Doom. Enfeebling Foe for the debuffs. There you go. Actually, he brought all of his spells, which I didn't realize at the time, but he did bring all of his spells. So trying to get maybe maximum magic utility. Not sure what you need, but regardless. For his backline, my opponent does have 2 Lothan Sea Guard with shields, 2 Archers with light armor, and some Phoenix Guard, Swordmasters of Ho with Spearmen out on the flanks, providing support, and then a Tyrannoc Chariot, which is low armor chariot with magical arrows. If I was going to make one critique of my opponent ahead of time, you can see I did shift fire from the Phoenix, figuring it doesn't really matter. If the Phoenix dives, I can defend it against it with Stormvermin. I did start shifting fire here against the Tyrannoc Chariot. You can see I do get a Howling Warp Kill off on the Phoenix, get a few volleys in there with the cannons. But if I was going to make a critique of my opponent's army decisions here, don't bring Archers with light armor. It's not worth it. 40 armor isn't going to make, and like 2 melee defense or whatever it is, isn't going to make a huge difference in the grand scheme of things. Another mistake my opponent does make here is actually using Regrowth on the Flamespire Phoenix. In my opinion, this isn't worth it. It would have been better to just let me waste my ammo on the Phoenix and kind of rely on the regen. As it is, though, my opponent does get a bit of maybe perhaps ahead of himself. Does cast the Fiery Convocation there, roasts like a Plague Monk or 2 at the back, but definitely that was a little bit ahead. My opponent was getting a little bit ahead of himself there. Perhaps should have waited until the lines met, but could potentially, if I wasn't paying attention, could have definitely been pretty brutal. Now here you can see the Flamespire Phoenix getting a huge heal from the Regrowth, basically undoing all the damage I did to it. And in the meantime, the Warp Lightning Cannons are teeing off on Teclis and just really laying the smackdown on him. The Archers in the meantime are going to start messing up my Plague Monks, and I realized this, and I realized I can't really engage, or can't just sit there and take it, so I decided to just charge in. In the meantime, over here, the Flamespire Phoenix is kind of hovering around, not really hit by a Flaming Sword of Ruin, not sure why, but I'm simply going to charge here. You can see the Plague Monks diving in against the Sword Masters. They are backed by the Gracier Plague, they are backed by the Warlock Engineer, and I'm immediately hitting my opponent with debuffs. I'm hitting Unholy Clamor, I'm hitting Wither, and you can see the Phoenix Guard actually goes down incredibly quickly. This is Phoenix Guard we're talking about, guys, not some second-rate Empire Halberds or Bretonnian Polearms. They're going down like 9 pins. They've dropped to 40 armor. They're obviously getting poisoned. Their vigor getting sapped away. The Swordmasters of Hoth here also getting torn apart pretty quickly. They're down to 30 armor, which, in case you're wondering, is the exact same as Empire Swordsmen. And with the physical resistance, the Plague Monks are basically as tanky as these guys. In the meantime, though, my Warp Lightning Cannons are pushing forward. You can see my opponent here using his archers to pepper down the Warp Lightning Cannon, getting quite a bit of value, but in turn, I'm sniping away at the Tyrnok Chariot, trying to get it offline, get rid of it, because it's a pretty easy target to hit, and it's definitely taking a beating. So this one's already down. It's definitely down to already just a handful of HP. You can see that massive volley going there and blasting this fancy little chariot up, and these guys are shortly going to break. Unfortunately for me, though, my opponent is definitely on top, and this is what you want to be doing if you have a lot of archers, is try to bring down artillery. Archers are actually very good at killing artillery. Never underestimate them. In the meantime, though, my opponent's Flamespire Phoenix is being caught down here by Clanrat Spears. You can see they're diving through as the Gutter Runners peck away at it with their throwing stars, and they're just going to chip away. And honestly, at this point, even if he gets a heal, he's so close to his healing cap because of that regrowth that my opponent used earlier, that's not really going to help the Phoenix. Over in the pits, the Plague Monks, with no more debuff, they are no longer doing as much as the Phoenix Guard, but they are still supported by that Warlock Engineer. Over here, this Phoenix Guard also collapsing, and that's really only leaving these Swordmasters, so I do throw the Stormvermin into the fray to just tie them down. My opponent does cast a Chain Lightning here, which it's a very RNG-heavy spell, not something you really want to be using, and it wanders off and doesn't really do much of anything. Maybe beats up on these Plague Monks a little bit. The Warp Lightning Cannon is in the meantime sniping away at Techless, and you can see I did get a summon of Clanrats here trying to collapse my opponent's back, and of course these Phoenix Guards are starting to waver. Once they break, my opponent's army is going to, he's not really going to have anything to hold his front line, and we're just going to be able to run him down with the Plague Monks. And even these Swordmasters have lost, at this point, have lost their martial prowess, so they're in a rough spot. And the Warp Lightning Cannon still teeing off on Techless. He does get his regrowth there, but regrowth isn't going to help against Warp Lightning Cannons, at least not defensively. At this point, my opponent does DGG as his front line collapses. So, definitely, I was trying to make the most out of my non-AP options here. Against this sort of heavily armored front line, or this army definitely could potentially struggle a little bit. And that is definitely why I wanted to bring Wither. And I think Wither is one of those spells that's incredibly useful. Minus 60 armor. It's amazing. That's a huge debuff. And it meant that in the first moments of that engagement, my opponent lost a massive chunk of his HP on his Phoenix Guard, massive chunk of his HP on the Swordmasters, and that's pretty important against high elves because you potentially get rid of that martial prowess, and once martial prowess is gone, they're in a much rougher spot. And that's what my opponent's build. Definitely, like I said before, don't bother with archers with light armor. Bring in normal archers. It's cheaper. You can save yourself some points that way. 100 points extra. Knock off some spells that you're not really going to use on Techless. And you can save up for another unit of spears in there, or perhaps another unit of archers, honestly. For the rest of this, Flamespire Phoenix can be okay against Skaven just because it's a cheap terror bomb. I'm not a big fan of chariots. I don't really think they're worthwhile. Skaven, of course, there's a good chance they'll bring Warp Lightning Cannons, which will just dominate you, as they did in this game. They destroy those Tyrnok chariots. So I think it's definitely better to instead bring some heavy cavalry, perhaps. That can always be very good against Skaven. Skaven are incredibly susceptible to heavy cav, so even Silver Helms, much less Dragon Princes, can dominate them. Some Illyrian Reavers can be okay. An elite front line is okay. Skaven don't have too many tools to completely wipe up an elite front line, but definitely I think it's better to put your dice into the cavalry, bring some spearmen, bring quite a bit of archers who can of course overwhelm the Skaven's poor defensive stats, and kind of encircle and collapse your opponent that way. As far as this build goes, I definitely think it's an okay Skaven build. Obviously, you're investing very heavily in the Warp Lightning Cannons. It's a big gamble. Things could go south, and if you don't use Warp Lightning Cannons to their full potential, you're definitely going to be in or if you can't defend them, if your opponent brings a bunch of Illyrian Reavers, you could be in a bit of a pickle there. But the Warp Lightning Cannons did okay here. They destroyed the Tyrnok Chariots, they destroyed Techless, they destroyed the Flamespire Phoenix, so knocking out those critical units, which they basically paid for themselves in their effectiveness. As for the rest of it, I wasn't a fan of the Gutter Runners. I definitely could have invested the points I put in these guys into just normal Gutter Runners with slings, or maybe basically anything else, really. The Clan Hats, of course, are there, whatever. The Plague Monks did surprisingly well just because of those debuffs. Definitely had fun with the Grace here. Obviously, if your opponent brings a bunch of dragons, that could be rough, but if you see a bunch of dragons, you need to pull back, use Howling Warp Gale, and then use your Stormvermin to shield your Lord. But nonetheless, great game to my opponent, Dave Mandler here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, criticism, any questions, anything like that, be sure to share them so I can respond as soon as I can. And as usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching. I do appreciate your support, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyron out.